What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up? What's up? Welcome back to Rebel Radio. We're here with part 2 of Vikter Duplaix. If you didn't hear Victor's interview last week, I suggest you go back on iTunes and listen to it. It was a good one. So good, in fact, that we bring you the B-side today. If you don't know Vikter, he's an international DJ, producer. He was a contestant on BET's Master of the Mix and then came back as a judge on that show. He's going to give us some good lessons that we didn't have time for last week. How he combats burnout, how he makes sure to get honest feedback from people around him when everybody wants to just say nice things to your face and not really give you the real. How he manages his own brand in the face of other people's expectations and not let people take him off track. And he's going to tell us about that one time when he made a beat for Bart Simpson. And now let's get into the interview with Vikter Duplaix, part 2 from last week.
One of the great parts about being in LA is that when you hang around movie stars in the film industry, the film industry operates like a white-collar business. And what I mean by that is you don't expect to be done in a white-collar business at 40.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
That's like the beginning for you.
Yeah.
Music industry operates like sports where
Yeah, you're done.
you're done at 26 or 27,
Yeah.
right? And then in a lot of cases, because you have that expectation, you do burn yourself out. You burn your body out. You burn you hate promoters. You hate producers.
Yeah.
You hate your label.
Yeah.
You know, you treat your coworkers and your assistants like crap and whatever. So then by the time you get to be 30, you're stuck.
Right.
You know, you don't have a hit. You don't have any friends.
Yeah.
And you're on your last dime, you know? And I think that the film business has taught me you have to find the best way to maintain at a high level because, God willing, you're going to have a long life, right? So put yourself in the best position to keep doing this and keep evolving and, you know, take care of your body, take care of your mind, all these things, and nurture your relationships because that person is surely going to be in a position to help you later. Or you're surely going to need that person for something that you're going to do. You know, they can be a supporting character in your role in your show or a producer or whatever, or all different kinds of combinations of things I've seen. And that is what I think we've been suffering through in the music business for a long time is this idea that we have to be burnouts. Yeah. And I just don't believe that anymore.
Well, yeah, it's weird. I mean, you know, there's definitely this window that you have as an artist, right? Certainly, probably more so as an artist than a producer, songwriter, whatever. But if you're up front on stage,
yeah,
right? There's definitely this window, and it seems like, yeah, you're either your career's dead or you're dead, or you're like best case is that you kind of had your hits, and then you get to tour those for the rest of your life, and you get to like put out some new stuff, but it really only goes back to those original fans.
Yeah,
right. So when you know, Cher makes a record now, right, it's for the people that loved her 20 years ago to keep feeding them. But it's not, you know, it's not really operating as an artist where you're constantly kind of having that conversation with fans.
It's hard to make a hit, though.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, if you get one, it's great, right?
Yeah.
And if you're like those artists who get 10, 15, 20 hits, that's like unusual.
Oh, yeah. It's
unprecedented.
It's like lightning.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, I think a lot of it is, do you or the people that are helping you make these records relate to the moment? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, that's the hardest part. If you put yourself in isolation, once you become famous to some degree, you become isolated. That at that level where you can't walk down the street, and when people don't speak to you honestly anymore, you know, I've never been in a superstar status, but I've definitely been popular enough that people start acting differently towards me, right?
Is that right?
Yeah, so I know that there are times where even when you don't even when you feel like you are yourself, there's a false sense of that because people stop telling you the truth.
So give us like the first big break and when the first time you felt that.
It's two things. So the first thing is when you're most of the early part of my career, I was successful as a producer and songwriter, right? So there's a particular amount of wealth that comes with that.
So what was the first kind of hit, or like first big success in that area?
The first big success financially or just?
Yeah, what was like the first check?
Well, the first check I got was I did a song on Teddy Pendergrass's album. That was the first thing. Like I produced, I negotiated, I did all this kind of stuff, and I was really young. But
what was the song?
The song was called "I Choose You," and it was on his album a Little More Magic, I believe. I think that was the last time he had a big hit record. Was that album? I was a little too young and naive to know what that was really on any level. It was just like, hey, I got a check. We can pay bills. We can make more music. Right? That's what it was.
I mean, that's probably a good way to...
Yeah. At the same time, I was doing things like on Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince albums and naively not taking credit for it because I just didn't know what, we're all homies and we're making
tracks. You don't know the business.
I made the first starter commercial with Jeff. I made a song with Bart Simpson.
Oh shit!
On Bart Simpson's album. These are things that generated millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know to take credit for it. But when I started to become an artist, I think is when you notice that there is a particular behavior that people say they hate, but they are kind of addicted to, that they like about artists in a weird, twisted way.
Okay.
Right? So me, I feel like I'm a real cool, peaceful kind of dude. But when someone hears an artist, or if they see your persona, and if my marketing is like I'm this mysterious kind of guy and my songs are all about women and sensuality and all these kinds of things, they're thinking I'm going to come in there with this nasty attitude and try to bang everybody's wife,
right?
Basically, right?
Yeah.
So if I don't do that, it's almost like a letdown to them. If I don't come in there with a supermodel or some exotic woman or what have you, they look at me like, what's going on? What's really the deal, And for many years, every time I did a press junket, they would never ask me about music. It would always be about how many women I slept with. What's it like to be an international Playboy?
What is it like?
Yeah, I mean, some of those things are true. Like you have those experiences, right?
Of course.
But I'm coming from the music. I didn't understand this whole thing of sell that, put that out there,
right?
And actually there was a famous DJ. I don't want to put him out there because it wasn't public, but he told me one time. He said, "Man, I've been watching your career." At this time, I was like in every magazine all over the world. He said, "I want you to be careful." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, if you don't force them to talk about your music, they won't. They're only going to talk about who you sleep with.
Yeah.
And that's going to be who you are." And I was like, wow, check that out, because I wasn't really aware.
Yeah.
I was feeling it at the time, but I wasn't aware. So, I mean, that to me was the first kind of thing. And then, it becomes cloudy. Why do these people like me? Do they like me because I made that sexy song, or do they like me because they think I'm beautiful, because I'm the person that I think I am?
Does that start to mess with your head, like creatively?
It doesn't mess with your head creatively until you get to the point where you're struggling financially or something like that, Or, if you're really heady, I mean, I'm not the only artist that said that the lifestyle of an entertainer is very lonely.
Of course.
The amount of time you spend traveling and in hotels and alone at a certain point in time can get to you, right? So even if you have some type of lover at your call, it isn't love,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And if you become conscious of that, then that's a struggle, because the people that love you or want to love you are sort of envious of your lifestyle.
Mhm.
So they see,
Yeah.
hey, I'm in town for a day. Tomorrow I have to go to Paris. And you're kind of saying like, tomorrow I have to go to Paris. And they're
Right.
like, what?
Yeah.
What are you bragging? And you're like, no, I really got to go to Paris tomorrow. And you're not thinking like pastries and,
Right,
and
right,
all
right.
that. You're thinking like on Charles de Gaulle security. Oh,
Yeah, you're not going to the Eiffel Tower. And,
not
All right.
that, you know, all the smoke.
right.
Oh man, like this is gonna be awful, you know.
Yeah.
They can't see you. They
course.
don't have that experience. I've been to Paris so many times. I always tell people it took me like 15 times to go to Paris to like it. Now, how many people can say that? You know, most of the people have in this mind that
You're supposed to fall in love with Paris.
I'm going to Paris. It's going to be so amazing. It's this amazing thing. And I got there. I was so unimpressed. I was like, this dirty ass place is what
Yeah.
everybody's been talking about? Are you kidding me? This is it? That's it? The Eiffel Tower? Now we're coming from the States where everything is 17 times bigger in most major cities in the United States.
Sure.
The parks are as beautiful all over the East Coast as Paris. Like I'm one of those people that's like, you're going to find pretty much everything beautiful in the world somewhere in the United States. If you see the United States is as beautiful, it's not to diss anything else, but it's not to like overly celebrate anything either. So it was always weird. But then on that 15th time though, it happened. It's like, oh, it is about this dirty, grimy thing.
Uh-huh.
That's really what it is,
Yeah.
because in the midst of that is all this amazing subculture. And when you grab a hold of that, then there's nothing like it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, secret trapdoor entrances to places and people just being free and open and expressive. Like, that's amazing, you know? But it took me a long time to get that. And everyone else that you know just thinks that every time you go somewhere, it's amazing. You know, and now it's probably even worse with Instagram, where everybody just takes that 1
For
second,
sure. Right.
you know, and all these girls on yachts.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm in the Maldives. What they really need to do is turn the camera around and show the old fat dude that paid for that trip. You know, that's not so sexy. But that's more like the truth, you know. When you go to the south of Europe in the summer, you see a lot of super sexy girls over there with a lot of big, fat, ugly dudes,
Yeah.
you know, who are paying for those trips. So, you know, it's just, it's those moments of trying to juxtapose your amazing life that you have, that you don't sit behind a desk and you get to travel and do what you love, versus the challenges of that lifestyle. Finding a companion who will support you through that, you know. How to deal with that moment you fell in love with that girl in that random place, but you don't know if you're ever going to see her again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's trippy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because sometimes you come across somebody and in 5 days, that's the most amazing thing ever. And then as an artist, that's fuel. So now I'm charged up for a year. I'm thinking about that cafe and, you know, that place you took me, that mountain range that was like a secret road we had to get to or what have you. And wow, I'm thinking she's totally in love with me and this is great. And, you know, occasional text, occasional FaceTime, what have you, blah, blah, blah. And you go back a year later and she's married with a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, what the hell? And she's like, dude, that was a year ago.
Yeah.
Right? And we're like FaceTime buddies or whatever. And you're a super lover, you know. You got girls all over the place. So, and you're like, but wait a minute, but my heart, you know, that it gets weird that way, you know.
Yeah. So I know we're running out of time, and I got a couple things I want to make sure we get to.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the business. I know you were having some success and didn't necessarily know the business, which is pretty common.
Yeah.
But I know you worked with Kenny Gamble, and what'd you learn from him?
Gamble came to me at a time where I was really struggling personally with what to do with my career. Should I be a writer? Should I be a producer? Should I be an artist? And I also had a really big situation in my personal life. So I had a child, and I thought it was my child, but it ended up not being my child. And the news of it not being my child was really devastating to me. It put me in like a depression. So he kind of got me and pulled me and allowed me to heal. And at the same time, he was telling me the importance of putting words to all the music. Because at that point in time, we were just track makers. James Poyser and I, we were just making beats and tracks. And when artists came into town, we let them write, and we would comment and I would produce it or whatever. But it was never really my perspective. And he was like, look, you have so much to offer this world that you have to put it out there from your own perspective. And the only challenge then was because I had not been developing myself as an artist, my vocals and things like that, it was like a period of going into understanding what that is. And that's where the underground music scene at the time was good for me, because I could experiment and just do stuff and it would work, because that's what people wanted.
Right.
They were hungry for unique things that fit into the space. And they let us study their business. They let us study, me and my partners, all the contracts from back in the day. I mean, I'm amazed at how much money they made.
Gambling, huh?
I mean, those contracts at the time, they were the first production company to ever exist. Yeah.
Wow.
CBS started that concept, and there was a lot of information there of being able to also study with the greatest writers ever. At that time, they had the most number ones. I think Babyface or somebody passed them since then. But, Huff would come in and just slam the greatest writers in history book on the table. He just, bam, and walk out, right? And we'd turn it over, and it would say #1 hit songs, Gamble and Huff.
Nice.
All right, and then James and I would look at each other like, okay, so you can see what they're trying to say, keep pushing, aspire to be better than you are at all times. So
how'd you meet up with James?
When Jeff and I started A Touch of Jazz, the production company that built Jill Scott and music and all those people, we were basically reaching out to all the musicians in the city to come in and play and stuff like that. And the group called Jeanne, Jeanne, they were at Temple at the time, and
that's Hey Mr. DJ.
Great. They eventually, because we didn't know the business, we didn't sign them, and they ended up going to Flavor Unit with Latifah and those guys. It was probably better for them because we didn't know what we were doing. So they brought James down. They actually it was a weird thing because James, he brought him down, and then they kind of were like, well, we're mad at him or something like that. It was some weird, we were all kids, so some crazy petty stuff. And then, but James lived around the corner from me the whole time, and I didn't know it. And we got to be really close.
This is before the Roots, right? The Roots was.
Yeah. James and I, we were basically the ones making all the music for A Touch of Jazz at first, and then we broke off from A Touch of Jazz, started to do our own thing, and we were all trying to aspire to be Gamble and Huff or Jam and Lewis or whatever. That was the thing. These teams, and when we broke off from A Touch of Jazz, it became a little bit more like we're a team. We work together, but you're talented. You can play keyboard all day. Work with whoever you want to work with. I'm not going to hold you back. I'm a producer. I can produce anybody. I want to be an artist. Let's find ourselves, what we really love. And so he was able to then come in contact with that whole quote-unquote Soulquarian squad, which they don't really like, but it is what it is,
So having been part of a duo, songwriting, producing duo, and solo, is one better than the other?
I don't like the individual thing as much. I'm much happier in a room full of 10 people and we're making a song together.
Okay.
Because I don't always have the best idea, Now, as it relates to editing and programming, I love that aspect of it. Like, that's probably my favorite thing to do, is just sit somewhere with some headphones when we're in a studio like this and just kind of get lost in the randomness of my own creativity. But my favorite thing is the camaraderie, you know, of putting great musicians in a space, the process of an idea coming out of my head into their bodies and onto some type of recording device is just amazing. You know, to think that can happen.
Yeah.
You know, outside of it, just constantly evolving with technology is a really challenging thing, and it keeps me on my toes. You know, because the machines are doing so much now.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like wow, you don't even know where to start sometimes. One half the battle is just figuring out which one you want to try. You know, and then when you try it, you're in that for 6 months and you find another one and you're like, well, I thought this was the best. Now this is the best. So it's pretty interesting what's going on.
So, you know, you started out kind of with, you know, sounds like playing like funk and soul. And then I know hip hop was happening. And obviously Philly has, you know, huge contributions to both of those. And then, you know, you ended up, you know, more in, you know, I would call it somewhere between soul and house, which is musically very related, but, you know, culturally, especially around the world, right? Those things are sometimes worlds apart, right? And I think for me, that's one of the really interesting things about house music is that there's kind of like white house and black house, and people outside don't necessarily get that. So, but I'm curious, you know, what was that transition like? And like, was it a conscious decision to go more in the dance music direction, or like how'd that happen?
I didn't know anything about that world at all. King Britt, a fellow Philly DJ and creator of interesting soundscapes, used to do these parties in downtown Philly. Like I said, Philly was segregated, not just skin tone, but culturally, you know.
Right.
And he was always one of those guys that hung in the quote unquote Benetton world before that was even popular thing. So one day I just happened to go to this bar.
For kids that don't know, Benetton is it's like H&M.
Yeah,
Only different.
Well, you know, multicultural.
I know they don't have it. That's right. We don't have no kids listening.
Yeah,
to the show
whatever
anymore.
the term is, whatever that is.
No,
right?
no, I get it. It's that crossroads.
Yeah, that was just like unusual,
Right.
right, in Philly, you know. And I went in there, and he was like, "Dude, I gotta talk to you. It's this amazing thing going on. You could put a record out and then travel the world." And I was like, "What? What do you mean put a record out? You mean get signed to a major label?" Because I was doing all this high-level major label stuff,
Right.
and in meetings with executives and all this type of stuff, right? So that's the only thing I knew about the music business. He turned me on to the 12-inch vinyl hustle, so to speak. And the community, he plugged me into a community as well. What I didn't know was that some of the things that I had made were already bubbling in these spaces at a high level, right? And that those people that spun house were also just fans and connoisseurs of music, so they would be aware of your name, or they're aware of your contributions. So then he and I started to experiment on some things, and he put a couple records out. We put some stuff out under this group called Scuba at the time, and got a lot of cool response.
What was the first record?
Damn, I can't remember what the first song. Swell was Swell. Swell is the name of it. And actually, this is a funny story. We were recording that record. The engineer was like, "You know, the singer's all right. He'll be better in 15 years."
Oh shit!
I got so pissed, man. You know, I was like, damn. But you know, truth be told, it was like some raggedy ass demo that had a vibe. It had a good vibe. Like it sounded as if it was Sting with a head cold or something. You know what I mean? It was cool. And in those, when I hear those early records, I cringe because those are always the things that somebody's like, "This is amazing, I love this," and they play it, and you hear everything that's out of tune.
Sure.
And you're like, "Oh my God, what was that? Why didn't I do that over?" You know what I'm saying? It's just nerve wracking. And
but that's kind of the point, right?
That's the process. You
Yeah.
have to go through it.
But also, we don't always understand why we respond to certain things, right? As listeners,
Yeah.
I've always tried to, because I like to overthink things. I've always tried to like decide that I like this kind of music because I like all different genres.
Yeah.
It's not that. So I've always been looking for that one common thread but there isn't one.
Yeah.
There's like, I'll like some shitty pop record that I would never sign up for, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And then, some hardcore hip hop or some punk rock or whatever, right? Like, and those, they have nothing in common.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you also don't know as an artist what your sweet spot is.
Yeah.
Unless somebody responds to it or unless they hear it.
Right.
So it's kind of a gift as a group to put a song out and then people say they like that track, or they like that vocalist or whatever, and then you start experimenting. Then the next thing I did was with Louie Vega, who at that time, the Masters at Work, was the epitome of dance culture. They had merged hard house beats with sexy soul tropical rhythm in the world, was just everybody was starting to imitate their flow, right? So I put a record out with their label that was nothing like anything that they did. So it stood out. This song Messages I did, and I even didn't call it myself. I called it Critical Point, featuring me. And that became a cult record.
Yeah.
So because I was like, I wanted to make house music, but at the same time I couldn't get with the monotony of it. The labels were all at that point trying to make us make Jill Scott music, Soul Child, the same thing over and over again.
Sure.
So I was getting monotony from the major label level, and then I was going into the house thing, and it was like, 909 sounds. It was driving me nuts. So I did this thing that was kind of syncopated and futuristic and had, way before anybody was really doing these kind of backwards synths and all that type of stuff. And I put a song on it, a kind of a small song. Then that made everybody want to come find me. All the other producers,
Yeah.
all the labels were starting to get hip to it. Giles Peterson on BBC. Then I made a song called Manhood, which was even another step up from that, a little bit more into the syncopation, house tempo, and then that became another cult classic, And then the bidding started to happen. Now bigger independent labels wanted to deal with me, and I started to deal with K7. K7's like, we got this great idea. Mix this DJ, give us a mix, but give us 4 original songs or something like that. And then I put Sensuality on top of it. And then that became like a radio hit in continental Europe. And I toured a lot. And then the labels in the US started to bid. Now, I got seduced by that. To some degree, I feel like that wasn't the best thing to do. I should have probably, in retrospect, done another deal with K7 and as an artist toured Europe and learned how to be a great artist. At that time where I did these deals in the States, I was still a studiophile. And I wasn't able to communicate that to the relatively ignorant United States market as this hybrid, this producer, DJ, singer. They couldn't relate to that because Moby and all those other people that were coming out of electronica, so to speak, weren't that.
Right.
They were sound files, but they knew how to bring that to a performance level. And I didn't. So they couldn't figure out what to do with me. And instead of being like, hey, we can't figure it out, they just kept stringing you along. So you end up being in these deals for 2-3 years, and it kind of puts the brakes on you, and then you start becoming disenchanted with the industry and all that kind of stuff. And then once you get to the point where those deals are over, now the industry is starting to shrink because of Napster and all that stuff. So now you're not getting that marketing money to break.
So how do you, it's pretty understandable, right? People start throwing money at you and accolades and, it's not, I don't think anyone would fault you for kind of buying into that.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, if you're advising, a youngster coming up, like, how does somebody keep their head on straight and stay focused on their mission in the face of all that?
You just have to know, do you love making music or do you love being famous? And whichever one it is, be honest about it and shape your career that way, all right? I love making music, but I I allowed the comfort of big checks to keep me from that.
Sure.
So what would have pushed me further along is if I kept on making great stuff. And every time that somebody had an issue with me, I presented them more music, and it just got better, and I got better and better to the point where it's undeniable. I think The Weeknd is an example of that. When I first heard his demos or his early records, I was like, I don't get this. This is weird. It's like out of tune singing. What the hell is the vibe, right? He kept on doing it and putting things out, building his fan base, and then on his second major label album, it's really good. It's literally great pop music, right?
Yeah.
So there was an evolution story there, but they never stopped. He never stopped. Drake never stops, right? They kept developing, kept building. A lot of people who are the new kids on the block do what I did, which is you grind because you love it, and then when you get that check, you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
now,
I'm good.
I got it. The label's got me now. The label is a device. It's not the heart of the operation. You are. You got to pump the blood into that device, and you pump the power into it to make it operate. And we don't have enough examples of how to navigate that. I mean, I don't want to put anybody on blast, but I've seen quite a few artists in the past 5 years who were the hot kids, and everybody talked about them. Other stars give them the validation. Oh, so and so is hot, and they get a deal, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And then they're stuck, and then you're like, damn.
I mean, a lot of times that record never comes out.
Never.
That was the hottest kid.
Never comes out. Or they have so many challenges trying to get their unique perspective across once they go inside because the companies are trying to force you into a particular type of box.
Well, it's interesting, and you mentioned like perfectionism earlier, and I think, if you look at what's happening in like the entrepreneurship and in the tech startup world especially, right? Like, there's a lot wrong with that. But one thing I think is really interesting is this whole idea of just make something shitty until you can make something good and put it out and let people react to it, and then you'll find out from them what works.
Yeah.
And, musicians, it's almost the opposite, right? It's like, like I said, if you get a hit, it's usually your first record, and then everything is downhill from there. And there's this sort of expectation that, everything has to be perfect. And, but if you look back in history, most of the great artists, the guys we're talking about that can go 20 years, their first record wasn't their greatest.
The first 3 albums or so
right.
were all over the place.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they find their way as artists. And so, like you said, maybe you can't do that in the major label context today because of the economics aren't going to allow for that. But, we're in an environment where the independent world has so much opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, it's an opportunity for everyone to find themselves under their own terms. Yeah. If they're fearless enough to do that. That's a big part of it. You got to let your guard down, and you have to be ballsy.
How do you stay fearless?
Practice. You gotta go in there. Like I understand the idea of letting people hear things, but it still has to be at a certain point, right? I know that I'm not going to get it right the first time I put something out, right? But I'm not going to put the thing out where I haven't been singing for 6 months and know I can't deliver the emotion and stuff like that. But now I'm moving to the point where I need to get away from it so I could evolve, right? Because you can stay in your cubby hole and like redo your own work forever, and it's just like an endless cycle. But now it's time for me to go ahead and tell my story so I could have get more information to come in freely.
So do you ever have that conversation with fans? That's like, here's something I'm feeling or I'm working on, and I know it's not perfect.
No, only because I trust my ability to that when it's time to put something out there that's of a particular quality level. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not that much of a novice where I need to where I'm unsure.
Sure.
I'm very confident in myself. It's just making sure that I actually put the work in and deliver something good, right? So that's because I'm a producer first. So I can optimistically listen to what I did and put it up against what's working now or what has worked in the past and say, this isn't there yet, even on the sonic level, and get it to that point, and then I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm not really at the raw point. And that's part of why I don't really work with a lot of artists who don't know how to finish records.
Sure.
Because they'll put something out and you're like, dude, that I just came to vibe on your track and you made a song out of that.
Right.
And you just let everybody hear it. Ugh, that's ridiculous, you know? I'm very careful with who I work with, because there's been some times where somebody put a song out and it ended up being really popular, and I was like, no, I don't like how that sounds, you know? And and it makes me cringe.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. What so you know, I think is an interesting turn that you ended up on the Master of the Mix, right? So the TV show sponsored by Smirnoff, right? You know, like that seems like an unlikely fit for you, given, I mean, I know you're a great DJ, but you know, that feels like an odd choice.
It was an odd choice in the sense that the way that the show was presented to the public, that's not how it was sold to me. So the way it was sold to me is that it was supposed to be a show that demonstrated the lifestyle of different types of DJs, right? So you had your old school hip hop DJs with Scratch. You had your battle DJ with Revolution. You had festival DJ with DJ Rap. You had kind of a touring of an R&B backing touring DJ with DJ Mars, Jazzy Jeff, legendary hip hop artist, and then you had me. Oh, you had Rich Medina, who's like a connoisseurs DJ, and then you had me, who was this soulful electronica global DJ. It was supposed to show how we live, the things we do, a lot of stuff that we talked about today.
Yeah.
But when we got on the set, it was a battle.
Right.
Right? A literal battle.
Yeah.
It just so happened that I was a battle DJ. So the wild card that they didn't expect was that I was going to be like, oh, okay, cool, and just jump right into that space, because that's how I started. Now, I was nowhere near as sharp as I was when I was 14 years old. I haven't been cutting and scratching and blah, blah, blah. But I had the mentality to do that. So I was unaffected by the pressure of 50 cameras and, you know, the pressure of doing this in 3 minutes. And I was confident that no matter what I was spinning, it was good. You know, I still had that kind of like, I don't care what you think, I'm dope. That's how I live my life, right? It's not like an ego thing. It's just like I believe in it because I work at it. And that was the narrative that they ran with. Like, you're supposed to be the sexy electronica guy with the supermodels and blah, 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 right? And they kept trying to egg me on in that direction. But then every time it got a little edgy and street, I would fit into that so seamlessly that they were confused. Like, even the producers, everybody, some of the creators of the show were my friends, and they were like, where did that come from? What's going on? But if everybody sees you for 15 years as this thing, and then suddenly they don't really see, it's like being in a relationship with someone who you only see them, you know, in the evenings and it's romantic or what have you, and then you see them in a situation where they're having an argument at a store and they want to fight the salesperson. You're like, do I want to be involved with that woman? You know what I mean? It's kind of that vibe. That's how everybody looked at him, like, oh my God, like, you're so hostile. And it wasn't that. It was just, I know what that energy is. Like, you don't go into a battle to be okay. You go in it to win. Yeah. You know? And if there's $250,000 on the table, you go to get it. It's as simple as that, right?
Yeah.
The fascinating thing was, after the season, they just wanted me to continue to be that person in everything that they did. So I was a host the second year and up for a host to be the third year. But when I refused to be Colin, what's the one on the mean one from the original?
Oh, Simon Cowell.
When I refused to be that, then I wasn't as popular to them. I wasn't as important, because they were looking for that angst.
Right.
That's what they wanted me to be. And I didn't like how it felt to walk down the street and people not like me because of a snapshot of a reactionary moment. Okay, so if somebody punches you in the jaw, you're going to smile? No, you're not going to smile. You're going to react. Even the nicest person is going to have a moment where they're like, you know, and if the cameras happen to be rolling and they're like, oh man, when he has a scowl, he's really, really hot. We can get ratings off of that, and they loop it and loop it and loop it.
Sure. When
you walk down the street with your kids and you're having a happy day, they look, that's the asshole dude, you know. And then because of the way people respond to reality TV, they think it's real. Yeah. You know, and they treat you that way.
So did that show, you know, did it change the game for you in terms, like, professionally?
It added a lot. Yeah. Yeah, it added a level of respectability from other entertainers. Once you make it to the silver screen or the tiny screen, to a certain degree, you've made it. You know, because it's so hard to be successful as an actor or any kind of entertainer. Yeah. When you're a part of something that's really, really high level, and we had our posters and billboards all across the United States, so people were like, they couldn't escape us. Like that was a really, really big marketing campaign. No doubt. It really helped, and it also made my other brands, my party brand, grow.
So let's talk about that, because I know you have multiple party brands. Yeah. Right. Kiss and Grind, Textures.
That's one. I mean, I have Kiss and Grind is the main one. The other ones are kind of come and go until I figure out the direction of them. But that's the main one.
So you have that in addition to your artist career. Yeah. So does the crowd change after the show? Do you start seeing different faces at the club?
It expanded. Yeah. So the Kiss and Grind party brand was so solid because we've been really meticulous in nurturing that for, at this point, 10 years of solid fun. But then with the TV show and the expansion of the internet at the same time, there's evidence now. You know, there's a conversation. You click on my name and then BT, VH1 comes up, or whatever, the association of other entertainers, pictures, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that starts to draw more people. Right. Other brands kind of want to support you while you're on TV. Okay, now it's an interesting look for me to partner with him because Smirnoff is involved or whatever. And I subtly use that to my advantage, whereas I never wanted to sell out to a brand because I don't want to be left if they decide to change course, right? So I always made sure that Kiss and Grind was growing. Now it's growing to the point where I want to turn that into a festival experience because I recognize the importance of what it represents to the person that wants to have fun and keep growing that. But at the same time, I don't want it to be underwritten where so-and-so can say, well, we financed it and this is our great global campaign, blah, 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 blah. And then you start getting into that, I want to do 10 major markets around the universe every year under this person's dollar, and then a new chairman comes in and says, we're not doing that anymore. Right. That's my biggest nightmare, you know?
So tell me, explain the Kiss and Grind brand and how do you manage that separately from your personal brand?
So the Kiss and Grind concept was born out of a need in Los Angeles to have you have all these amazing people here, a lot of amazing events, but no fun at any of them. And when I first moved to LA, the thing that I was most fascinated by is like the truth behind release parties and stuff like that, where there's this picture like this was this amazing party and you have all these celebrities that were there, right? Yeah. But when you start to go to those parties, you realize that those celebrities were there at 6:30, which was 3 hours before the party started. And I was really fascinated, like how could that, what kind of party is this exactly? So the celebrities come and take a picture at 6:30, then they leave. Then the people are in there drunk, but they're not dancing, but the photographers present it to the rest of the world like it's this amazing experience. But then when you finally go there, you're like, this is whack. This movie premiere is awful. I can't wait to get out of here, right? So I wanted to create something that was really fun with those same people and didn't have to be pretentious. It was a basement party with a red light, an old school fire light. And it was in the bottom of an art gallery, so you could be upstairs having a conversation, actually, or you could be downstairs partying doing whatever you wanted. You know, gay, straight, bisexual. You know, you want to get half naked. It was there for you. It became a destination point every month. Then we started to move it around, text only kind of thing, no flyer, none of that. Like, and it became so important to people, and we never had a flop. So one of the things that I've been doing parties a long time. You always have a bad night at some point in time. We have never had a bad night in 10 years. I've never had a flop party. That's an amazing thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it fluctuates sometimes based on the popularity of a guest, but it is never like nobody's there or we took a loss or something like that. And, you know, because we're in LA, it doesn't rain.
Right.
So that helps.
Yeah.
But
Have you had a favorite night at Kiss and Grind?
I have. It was a long time ago where we took over a pop-up art gallery in the warehouse district at like 20th and Alameda or something like that. It was on the 4th floor.
Oh, wow.
It was
That's cool.
They had 20-foot pieces of art, and they had like a golf cart that they turned into a magic carpet, and a wall of TV screens and all this kind of crazy stuff. And we put black lights in the hallway so you could walk up the 4 floors, but it's kind of like a scene from a gangster movie or like, I don't know, like a crack house film or something like that. Graffiti on the walls, broken bottles and everything. So you had ladies going in heels up to that, and they go into this giant art gallery, and everybody was blown away. That was one of my favorite nights.
Cool.
Prince was there, and it was really dope.
Nice.
But yeah, so, you know, that's the premise combined with music from the soul diaspora. So soul, R&B, hip hop, salsa, samba, deep house, anything that is rooted in that. It was less hip hop before. It was actually no hip hop at first. It was rare groove, and I designed it to be a little bit more focused on the modern soul acts. So Usher, music, you know, all the bad boy soul artists. That was the core soundtrack.
Okay.
Then we would dip into soul and funk a little bit, but it wasn't exclusively that. We tried to stay away from the obvious, try to stay from Michael Jackson and Prince. I still don't play a lot of Prince in MJ because of that. You know, like, I think there's just so much music that's great. To always rely on the same 3 or 4 songs is like cheapening the whole process.
Sure.
But then it evolved, and we started having guests and starting to hear their perspectives, and the crowd would grow. You borrow some of their fans, and now we're just getting to the point where we're making it more experiential, where we want you to come in not just to party, but the next level is to put some performance on it, or to put go back to the kind of art gallery combination, but in an innovative way. Yeah, you know, to lock the social thing. A lot of people got their girlfriends out of it or whatever, and boyfriends. It was good or bad stories coming out of it. And that's what makes me happy when it has a purpose outside of just the party. Yeah. And, you know, we did a Michael Jackson tribute with Questlove last year. We got 5,000 people at Grand Park. 1 week of promotion or something like that. Yeah. And at that point, we were like, all right, we have something. Yeah. You know, let's build it. And it was an all-day affair, so we could have kids out there. So it was people from 2 to 70 out there. I don't think it was that old, but probably like 2 to 45 or whatever is the average thing. So that was great to see that happen. And I'm just looking forward to expanding it more, taking it across the country and trying to deliver the same type of feeling to people. So it doesn't really match my artist career. Okay. Right? So that's the inner city Philly boy thing. That's very natural to me. But I personally enjoyed the global thing, which is everything is new. I like that. I like to go into a place where the people party just as hard as they do at Kiss and Grind to things they never heard before. To me, that's been my career. You go to, somebody pays you $10,000 to fly to their city. You show up. If you play the same thing that the other people are playing, they're mad. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're like, why are you doing that? Why are you playing stuff on the radio? That's not why I'm here. Let me hear you. So I'm looking to rebuild that here as well.
Is that more of a global thing, or do you find, is there a lot of that in the U.S. too, where audiences are looking to be challenged and find stuff that they're not hearing everywhere else?
They're looking, but the way you get to them is different. You almost have to build your own following. You have to nurture that. You have to start small, or you have to be connected to these different pockets of crews that do that kind of thing. A great example is the Selection Team, where all those people that came out of that, Carmack and Joe K as a presenter, but there's a lot of producers and artists that have come out of it. That's an extension of that movement, and the way that they got to their people was unusual. You know what I mean? So finding out what that is for the next group of people is probably going to be a combination of creating events and creating portals for people to come to that, and being willing to be the person who's stepping out in front of it and saying, this is what I mean. I tried to get all my contemporaries to do this years ago, Jazzanova and Four Hero, but that type of person was shy, right? I'm a bit like that too, where I'm not instinctively the person who wants to show off or put their neck out there. I do it as like a necessity, but I'm much more comfortable letting my work speak. But to push it forward, you have to work a little harder to get the attention, and figure out what that is. And so for me, it's going to be a multimedia thing. I'm doing a lot of fine art photography projects to match the releases, and getting into making short films and participating more in the film business, creating that synergy so that the conversation is coming from all angles, not just a nightlife experience or not just a song. It's a lifestyle perspective that I want to sell, that I now want to show people the James Bond lifestyle that I've been living. Before I wanted to keep it to myself. This is mine, and you can ask me all those questions, but I'm not telling you anything.
And is that, did somebody teach you that, or did you, how'd you make that transition?
I've been studying.
Yeah.
You got to study. When I started to be a producer, we bought albums. I was a DJ, but I would study, and.
But was it was there a moment of decision? Or was it more of a gradual thing that you look back and go, oh, okay, I see that.
I was starting to become restless, and I felt a little displaced, but I always felt displaced. Then I started to feel really restless around the time that Disclosure started to come on the scene. And then when I heard Disclosure, I was like, that's us all day. No disrespect to them, but they did nothing new. That's like one of the things that they did was they put pop sensibility on the Sonics, right? But in terms of the Sonics, I even called some of the legends of that movement and say, what have you been doing? Have you heard this group? Have you heard this sound? This is Detroit. This is so Detroit, I can't even believe it, And they would all say, yeah, but I don't mess with that new stuff. And it's always that vibe, right? But I was never that dude. I was like, okay, you guys are slipping. You're tripping and you're slipping, And then next thing you know, you have, Detroit Swindle and K Tronada and all these other people that are kind of in that same pocket with their own spin. Yeah. And I was like, what am I doing? This is it. I'm still here.
Yeah.
Hey, let's get going. But instead of just doing whatever and jumping out there, I decided to study what do you do with it once you make it. And I think that's a bigger issue now than just making it.
Sure.
And volume is the thing that I feel the young person, the young creator is winning at.
No doubt.
They put stuff out relentlessly, and it helps them increase their base so fast because there's no year wait. Yeah. There's no 6-month wait.
Right.
It's like every Tuesday or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do. Is sometimes if you have a busy life, if you have kids, you have this other kind of stuff, you got to kind of set that up ahead of time. Is a little bit of guessing. But I believe that once you get it going, then everybody starts to support you and get involved, and you can do collaborations, and it starts to expand. So I mean, that's my vision of what I think it's going to take to to re-engage that community and also connect the people that still exist that love it with a new audience,
That's
who
great.
don't know anything about it.
Nice. Who's your favorite DJ of all time?
I really don't have one, just because I like so many different styles and so many forms of music.
So let me ask you a different way. Pick a performance you've seen, live DJ performance that stands out in memory.
I mean, I'm a little biased because I'm talking about from a hip hop perspective. I saw Jazzy Jeff when he was just a teenager. So the level of energy and the velocity that he would scratch and cut has always been amazing to me.
Yeah.
Because no one else, unless you were in Philly, in West Philly, in those house parties and basements, will ever see that again.
Mm-hmm.
Because he would leave a bucket of sweat on the ground and everyone was amazed, right? So I'm amazed at the precision and the sound. Jeff was always that person where you just had to say, wow. Even as a little kid, I was into that. But then there are selectors. Like, I am always impressed by people who have a deep collection of music. So Giles Peterson is a person who I don't think he's a technically solid DJ per se, but what he does is he sequences these songs that have these amazing intros and all these different kinds of things, and he takes you on his musical journey, and I don't even know any of the songs ever.
Right.
And I think that's a whole nother kind of skill. I'm impressed with that from a collector's perspective. But there's so many DJs. It's difficult to pick any one that impresses me over and over again because I'm such a fan of what they all do. And it's the ones who pay attention to the people and give the people exactly what they want, whether it be deep house or techno or whatever. If you're good, you're good, and I like it.
Yeah. Victor, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Great stories. So dope.
They're copywritten.
Yeah, that's
coming
right.
out for the movie.
That's right. Nice. Yeah, thanks, man. That's good. You had some surprises in there that I
Try not to
wasn't
date
expecting.
myself.
Nah, that's good stuff.
I'm only 32.
That's right.
Frozen. Where you can find me? Like my house? I'm not giving my address. No, I was just playing. My
Social security number.
My what are my handles? My Twitter is @Duplaix, DUPLAIX, and my Instagram is my whole name, Vikter Duplaix, VIKTERDUPLAIX, and Facebook is the same.
And if you want to find Kiss and Grind online,
Kiss and Grind is a little more mysterious. There is definitely a Kiss and Grind page, Facebook page. The Instagram is a little underutilized at the moment, but we're going to change that.
so find it on Facebook.
Facebook is probably the best thing. We're going to be doing the official after party to the Roots Picnic June with me, Jazzy Jeff, and Questlove. So that's going to be a pretty big event.
Okay, I'm coming
in Philly. Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So, and special guests, and we're going to do a tribute with Earth, Wind, and Fire. We were supposed to do it this past Friday, but unfortunately Maurice White passed, so we're moving it March, April, still trying to figure out the date. A special hybrid show where they are going to perform with me.
Nice.
So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, if you like to dance, come to Kiss and Grind.
Anytime.
It's an amazing experience.
Yeah, it's fun.
Dope.
Yeah, cool.
Oh yeah, that was my man Vikter Duplaix. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, if you did, make sure you go back and listen to last week's episode of Vikter Duplaix Part 1. Make sure you hit us up on Twitter @RebelRadioNet or on our Facebook page. And leave us a review on iTunes. Make sure you hit those 5 stars, all 5 of them. And last but not least, come back next week for more Rebel Radio. My guest will be the very funny comedian Brandon Wardell. We out.